2050, and this is about what we need to remove. I'm not even talking about emission reductions, okay? Those were done. And yet, we need to get CO2 out of the atmosphere. Last week, in the United States, we were going to see the biggest technology-based CDR plant starting operations. It had to be postponed, it had a technical glitch. They will solve that. That plant, every year, again, the biggest, will remove, when working, 500,000 tons per year. 500,000 tons. And that's the biggest, because whatever is left, all the other plants are in the order of 10,000 tons, 15,000 tons. You know, a good one may get to 20. This amount of removals by 2050 is about 2 gigatons. 2 gigatons, for comparison purposes, is more than what the European ETS trade every year. So, taking this plant as an example of a big plant, you would need to multiply that by 4,000 in the best scenario to remove what you need to remove to avoid an overshooting. I am really, by genetic design, an optimistic person, but I see it really difficult that you can really achieve that level of removals without nature. So that is the other big message. When we say we need nature not to overshoot, and we don't really want to overshoot badly because it can be really, really bad, if you need to defend that, you know, reason will be with you. It's really true. So let's move forward now. And this is just something that we found. We wanted to show it as a day-to-day impact. Singapore in 2024 has 122, you know, half the days, a third of the days in the whole year in which you had a level of exposure to heat you don't want to have. And Asia, for some reason, not to go over it now, is heating up at way over the rate of the rest of the world. So we saw a bit about nature. Now I want to move into markets. And the use of carbon pricing mechanism is growing. That's why, as UNEP, we are interested in it. Again, it is the scale now what matters to us. And there you have some statistics. More than 80 emission trading mechanisms, a third of the global emissions. It was 5% at the beginning of this century. So it has been adding about 5% of the global emissions every 5 years. A third is not bad. And in terms of revenues, not gross income, is about $100 billion now. Just to make a comparison, 100 billion is about the money that the World Bank lends in a year. Or if we want to get something that is closer to home, it's anything between 3 and 4 times what the Asian Development Bank will lend in a year. So we are not yet there, but this is growing, and bit by bit, it's gaining a scale. And scale really matters. Something that Martin was saying, and I could not support more, is that we are all for integrity in carbon markets. I mean, this is in the DNA of UNEP. I mean, we don't sell emissions, we don't buy emissions, we don't trade, we don't make money out of this. So integrity is really what matters to us. Integrity without scale doesn't cut it. And of course, the scale without integrity doesn't cut it either. But scale has to be there. So where can we see scale coming in the next decade? One is Article 6, and particularly 6.2. We see action here. Some numbers that you see on the screen, for example, the countries planning to purchase ITMOS, yes, I know, I give it, it has a wide variation, anything between 2 and 1.5 gigatons. But even a middle range, would still be something that we will notice by 2030. And as the NDCs every 5 years are updated, we expect Article 6, particularly 6.2, to actually show good demand. CORSIA is another market in which nature has a major role to play. Later in one of the panels, we will have Juan Carlos Arredondo, who may be in the room, probably, yeah, one of the best experts I know. He will be talking about CORSIA. I would say by 2027, somewhere there, we would expect about 200 million tons of demand from airlines through CORSIA, all of them with corresponding adjustments. And just to make it clear, going back to this slide, what you see here will also come with corresponding adjustments, meaning countries will need to deduct those emissions from the NDC. Okay, so here you see that happening. You go to CORSIA, you see that happening as well. Some people say that the supply crunch here may not really come because of lack of eligible credits, but actually because of corresponding adjustments. We will see what really happens. But again, in the next less than 24 months, you see another 200 million tons being demanded. And now we go to voluntary carbon markets. And here is where probably we could see one of the strongest demand for nature-based credits. I'm sure you have seen estimations of growth by 2050. They can vary, I know, but there is a consensus. And I will also show some signals that this will grow. It will be unlikely that you don't see significant growth coming in the next 20 years. And this is part of the reasons why at UNEP we believe that yes, there is capacity to grow. Let me take some time to go over this graph. The first big message is that supply is tightening, and that will have an impact on prices. That is this the line at the top of this graph, and what you see is that supply increasing up to 2022, and then the Guardian effect, as some people call it, really battered the market. It was a heavy hit, and the market felt it. And you see from 2022 onwards a decrease in the number of credits that were issued. Credit issuance is the line at the top. But this one here, these are credits that are retired, and they kind of held steadily, which actually gives ground to the second message over there, which is the corporates stay committed to the BCM. Nature-based solutions has been at the core of this. The volume you see in this market really comes from nature-based solutions. That was a good thing. Through that decrease of issuance, I mean, Guardian articles, they signal problems. Some of them were true.